Entry and exit tones are off.
All right, good morning, millionaires. Good morning, millionaires. I hope you're feeling good this morning. My name is Haziq Ali, and it's Skill Set Wednesday. That means, every Wednesday what we do, sometimes we focus on heart set, you know, uh, that's what this one means. Sometimes we focus on mindset, and then sometimes we focus on skill set. Did y'all ever put that together? That's what you're looking at right here? Did y'all ever notice that? But today is a skill set Wednesday, skills win Wednesday. And our whole idea on Wednesdays is to give you the skills that pay the bills, that buy some buildings, et cetera, so forth. And today, what I wanted to talk about was listening. One of the first observations I have for you this morning, and maybe you've noticed this, maybe you haven't in your journey as an entrepreneur, but nobody says you're a bad listener. Nobody says that you are a mediocre listener. You know the word they always use? They always say you're a poor listener. Anybody ever notice that? They always say you're a poor listener. I think that's very telling as a comment that they would say poor listener. You know what I'm saying to you? So what I want to talk about this morning is this whole concept of listening. We've covered this before, but this morning I kind of want to talk about some reasons why you probably are a poor listener in that moment, because listening is kind of like confidence. It's very situational. You might be a very good listener in one situation and then a very bad listener in a whole other situation. It's like, I didn't hear you. No, you weren't listening. You know what I'm saying to you? So give a share this with your accountability partner. If you think to yourself, man, our people need to listen better. No, your people need to understand why they don't listen. Think about it. Here's the reality. We always quit paying attention for one reason or another. There's always a reason. And a lot of times what we do is we'll blame it on the person talking to you. But two rudes don't make a right. Somebody give me that in the comments. Two rudes don't make a right. My man Yeshua in the house. Long time, baby. I'm glad you made it in, brother. Hey, Shiz, I'm so glad you're here this morning, bro. I'm so glad you're here this morning. Mimi. Nicole just told me you have an incredible event coming up. Make sure you let them know about that. You know what I'm saying? So how do you listen? How do you listen? That's both a question and an enigma. Because if you ask me, listening is one of the big three of selling. Listening is one of the big three in selling. You got asking, you got that posture of a friend, and then you have listening. Somebody give me those three in the comments. Somebody give me those three in the comments. You got listening, you got asking, and you have being friendly. Those are the my man Keontis in the house. That's what I'm talking about, bro. Listening, asking, and being friendly are probably the big three skills when it comes to selling. But if you ask most salespeople, people who have this self-image of having the gift of gab, a lot of times they'll tell you that listening is their weakest quality. A lot of times it's because they're impatient, but mostly because they don't know how. Is that fair? A lot of times it's just because they don't know how. Or even deeper, they don't know the components or the factors that make up the why of listening. So I did a little bit of studying on this last night, and I want to share it with you this morning. Because to complicate things even further, there are manners in which people listen. And I'm not saying, hey, please and thank you and all of that, the attitude and all of that, mood. I'm talking about the fact that a lot of times when we are in the wrong state of mind, when we're in the wrong mindset, it can affect our listening competence by more than half. It can affect our listening competence by more than half. There are 3.5 opposite sets of listening situations. Write these down in your power book. This is important. Write this down. You got active listening and passive listening, right? Active listening and passive listening. Then you have positive listening and negative listening. Positive listening and negative listening. And then you have open listening and closed listening. And we all fall victim to this stuff sometimes. The reason I said 3.5 is you got a whole other situation where you're being distracted by the world. I'm talking about your cell phone going off, the joint making some noise like bing. You know what I'm saying? Your phone make noises. You like, I didn't even know it could do that sound. And the next thing you know, you're picking it up. Like last night, me and my lady were having like just some quality time that we've decided to devote. And one thing that we did that was real cool was we both put our phones down, face down on top of each other so that we couldn't see it. But them joints was still going off. You know what I mean? Them joints was still going off. It's like it be calling you. Y'all seen New Jack City? It just be calling me, man. No pun intended, because it's a phone. We know people call you, but now the phone be calling you. It is wild. But here's the thing. You can almost get the feeling and meaning of these opening versus close and passive versus active and positive versus negative without me even explaining to them. But listening is also broken down into elements. And each one of these elements that I'm about to give you represents a why. So I've added a little bit of a kind of description to each to clarify, but I just want you to jot these down in your power book and ask yourself if this is helpful. All right. So listening with the intent to understand. So when do we do that? When it's a sermon, when it's a movie, we listen to understand. We know how to do it, right? When it's a classroom, we listen to understand. So jot that down. What about listening with the intent to take action? Like when somebody's giving us instructions, then we're really good with listening, right? Listening with the intent to learn, like when we're listening to a teacher, or we're listening to a trainer, or we're listening to a seminar leader where we just now paid a couple dollars. Boy, when we pay, we'll pay attention a lot of times, won't we? Interesting, right? What about listening with the intent to enjoy? Like when you're listening to music, or when you're listening to the sounds of nature, right? You're listening to a waterfall, you're listening to a fire crackling, right? What about listening with the intent to remember? Listening with the intent to remember, like driving directions, or a website address, right? Or a phone number. Now you're listening with the intent to remember. Isn't this interesting? I just now proved to you that even those of us who admit that we really need to work on our listening skills, it's situational. Like confidence. You're very confident talking to your children, but not so confident talking to your boss. Am I right? It's the same thing with listening. You listen extremely well when you're watching this movie, but not so well when you're listening to your spouse. Isn't that interesting? What am I saying? I'm saying that who you're listening to can have a huge impact on the quality of your listening. Your mother, your boss, right? Your spouse, your kids, your best friend, your favorite celebrity. Isn't that interesting? Somebody you like and you want to get closer to them. Somebody you dislike and you want to get further away from them. All of this affects the outcome of your listening ability. It's their words, but it's also your mood. It's also the level of respect you have for that person. It's also the level of respect that you have for yourself. All of this makes up what we call a listening effectiveness model. And I just thought that this was some real cool stuff for you to jot down in your power book. Yeah, Mark, I could tell that. I could tell that because the other day when we were talking, you was like, man, I want to get it how you are, where sometimes you really, modulate the way you do your voice. You didn't use the word modulate, Mark, but I knew what you meant. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I get real excited. And then sometimes I start talking like this. And when I change my tonality, it makes people lean in like whatever he's about to say must be real important, but maybe not. Maybe not. It's just a communication skill. Also, we were going through our little thing last night. It's sort of like I guess you could call it like a quality time workbook um, that Narissa and I were going through. It actually told us, make sure you're in a good place to listen to each other before you jump into this thing. Because, if you're not in the right mood, if you're not in the right energy level, and if you haven't gotten really gifted at being able to control your own energy, it's going to lower the effectiveness of the exercise. So I thought that was really interesting. Okay. But the reason that I'm sharing this with you is that now I want to get to some of the bad elements. I want to talk about 7 ways to be a really poor listener, if y'all could dig it. So write this down. Listening with the intent to respond. Listening with the intent to respond. I just gave you about 5 or 6 ways that you're an incredible listener, but now I'm going to give you 7 ways that you're a poor listener. Listening with the intent to respond. This is where interruptions occur, right? You got something to say, or you think you already know what they're about to say. As a matter of fact, they said this in they were talking about this in the thing that we were going over last night, which has kind of really sparked this for today's Skill Set Wednesday. They were talking about how, 4 of the most expensive words in relationship are "I know that already." And it was like, instead of saying "you know this already," ask yourself, what can you learn from this? Right? Listen with the intent to respond is the opposite of you being humble and putting your ego aside and asking yourself, well, what can I learn from this? You think you got something to say. You think you already know the answer. Or you have a lack of confidence that you're going to forget your point. Remember, we went through that, Mark? We were talking to each other. And then at one point, it was just like, dang, I forgot what I was going to say. And I'm like, man, that happens to me all the time. That's why I interrupt people. But I have to discover that it comes off as very rude when really we just trying not to forget our point. You know what I'm saying? So the first listen should be listen with the intent to understand. Then you can respond with the full knowledge of what's been communicated. Now your opinion is educated. You get what I mean? So here's a little cure for you. Just ask the person if they have finished their thought before you respond. And what you can do is write down a note about what you were going to say so you don't forget. Here's the second one, because I know we're running out of time. This is supposed to be 15 minutes of fire. You know what I mean? We keep pushing it further and further. All right, here we go. Check it out. The second way you can become a poor listener is when you listen with the intent to figure out an angle. When you're listening with the intent to figure out an angle, aka manipulate. I'll give you an example of that. When you're interacting with a customer during a selling situation, you swear you know exactly how to lead them where they're going and all of that. But that ain't your play. Your play is listening to build rapport. You shouldn't be listening to figure out an angle. Yeah, you're listening for problems, but you're going to be a poor listener if all you're trying to do is listen to figure out an angle on them. Does that make sense? And I appreciate that transparency, Willie Favors. Yeah, Johnny Walker. I appreciate that, bro. Here's the third one. Listen because you have to obey. That's going to make you a poor listener because you're listening from fear instead of love, right? Who do we listen to because we have to obey? That's bosses, that's parents, that's teachers, right? We listen because we have to obey a lot of times, right? They're yelling, they're disciplining you. You know what I mean? Well, no. What's a better example of that one is this next one. Listen because you're forced to, right? So listening because you have to obey would be parents, teachers, bosses. But listening because you're forced to could again be your boss, but also teachers, right? Parents. What about number 6? Listening with the intent not to pay attention. You tuned out because you can't stand their butt right now. Right? You can't stand this person. Right? So you adopt a passive aggressive kind of vibe where you might even say when they get done talking, none of that resonated. I ain't hearing, you know what I mean? All that was stupid. Nah, we being stupid. You know what I mean? And then number 7 is listening with the intent to argue. Like whenever you're in an argument or a fight, listening is going to be overpowered by your anger. It's going to be overpowered by your negativity. There's also the ever popular pretending to listen, but you in another world, you know, where you have other things on your mind that are more powerful than what's being said. So now you're tuning out whoever's speaking. We all have probably, you know, we can all probably relate to that one too. So here's some telltale signs of not listening. You keep asking them to repeat themselves. I ain't mad at you when you do that because at least you're trying. You know what I mean? Getting the instructions wrong. You got to get more focused. You got to get more focused. It expands your potential. Making mistakes on the job. Obviously, that's going to decrease your potential because now you ain't got a job. Getting rejected. If you're getting rejected, maybe it's because you're pitching something that they don't need. You didn't even listen to them. You were just stuck on what you're trying to sell instead of how you can serve. You get what I mean? You ever heard somebody say, now listen up, this is important. What does that mean? It means that without preface to whatever's being said, the odds are pretty good that people ain't paying attention. You know what I mean? They ain't paying attention to the person speaking. But check this out. You think Bill Gates got to walk into the room and say, everybody listen up? You think Steve Jobs would have to do that? What about Michael Jordan? What about Michael Jordan, right? Nah, they walk in a room and everybody goes, shh. Like a hush falls over the room, like a magic spell, right? Everybody in the room is all ears all of a sudden. I just want you to notice that, right? Because respect is a force multiplier. This is why leadership is so important. This is where I was going with this. This is why you should be focusing on becoming a better leader. Because the more you can grow your influence, the more you grow your respect, and the more you can get things out of your team. You get what I'm saying to you? The 3 best states to be in when listening are the state of calm, the state of happy, and a state of willing. Can somebody give me that in the comments? Calm, happy, and willing. These are ear-opening states. The worst listening states are New York and New Jersey. No, I'm just playing. I'm corny, man. But you get what I'm saying? I know that everybody's looking for a silver bullet to be a better listener because nobody wants to be poor. And one good way to be poor is to be a poor listener. You notice that? People that ain't coachable, they don't find their bank account growing very much, right? Because everybody's using their best stuff already. You already using all your best ideas. I want you to think about that. So you don't find that poor listeners do very well in business. You don't find that poor listeners do very well in life. A lot of times, if you can't listen to people, then you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck in your same position in life, and you're going to wonder what's going wrong. So here's a little secret that can make anybody a better listener. You ready? Somebody write this in the notes. Take notes. Take notes. Think about the word noteworthy. When you take notes, you always show respect. You know, you consider Michael Jordan noteworthy. You know, you consider Bill Gates noteworthy. Isn't that interesting? That's like a whole word that means respectable and all of that. Well, check it out. If you take notes while somebody's talking, it shows you respect. It makes you always hear. Now you have a reference to help you remember what was said. Y'all know in that comfort curve I teach, I'm always like, be friendly, you know, which means you're asking questions to discover problems, not just, you know, leading questions to try and get them to buy something, but you're also writing it down in your personnel file. And then once you got these problems, you can plug them in to some kind of training or some kind of resource that'll help them solve the problem. What are you doing? You're being a friend. Now it's back to the beginning. It's like a cycle. You get what I'm saying? I'm telling you, this technology that we teach you is absolutely beautiful. And while we talk about beautiful technology, let me tell you something. Come say your affirmations. I cannot tell you how many people do not listen to what I'm about to say because I hear it every week. You cut off right before you started saying the affirmations. Listen to me for a minute. You have to call in to do the affirmations. Call in right now. Call this phone number you see right here. Y'all see that? Here's something else. You ain't going to be able to really write this down right now, but you see that right there? Text @MillMind to 81010. And we'll send you reminders every day of the topic. Every Wednesday, we do Obsessed with Success at 5:15 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to send out the topic through the text message system. So if you want to know what we're talking about tonight at 5:15, then make sure you join the text message system. And then also, of course, you can join the newsletter. I hope this was helpful, y'all. Repeat after me. Repeat after me. And if your phone line tries to charge you to call in, just text "call me" to the same number. Not the text message system. Text "call me" to that number, 667-776-WIN1 or 9461, 667-776-WIN1. Repeat after me, millionaires. Say it like you mean it. I am so happy and grateful that money comes